The following program is sponsored by the LaGrange Park Antique Mall.
Welcome to Backstage Antiques. Tonight we're coming to you from the LaGrange Park Antique Mall in LaGrange Park, Illinois. I'm Dawn Croma, and I have with me Linda Benson, antique auctioneer and appraiser, and Loretta Harwood, ISA appraiser. Thanks for coming this evening. This is Dolores Clark. Dolores, you brought a pewter piece to us tonight?
Yes, I bought it in Washington, Seattle, at an antique shop.
About how long ago did you get it?
Probably about 3 years ago.
About 3 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
This is a pewter inkwell. Unfortunately, it's actually missing the inkwell part of it. You're going to want to look for replacement if you can. It would be a marriage, but at least it would be more complete. You should be able to watch the shows in the flea markets and find one like it. This piece is definitely a 20th century piece. You can see that it's machine turned. There's little rings on it like you would see on a trunk. And it's been put together with solder at the joints. It's not dovetailed. Those were all things that would be different if it was an older part. In its current condition, not knowing who made it, I would say maybe up to $75 at the most. And to be honest with you, pewter is a little bit depressed at the moment. The good thing is that you could use it as it is for flowers, because with the holes you can put them in there, and it's got a nice decorative value that way. And if you like pewter, it'll display very nicely. If it did have its inkwell, it'd probably be closer to $250 or so.
Oh, wow.
Thank you very much for bringing this interesting piece to us tonight.
Well, thank you.
Hello. Jay Stursky has brought us a very interesting little ring. What can you tell me about the ring, Jay?
Well, my grandfather was a watchmaker, and he worked in the Chicago downtown area. My mom worked for him and when she was about 16, and this is one of her purchases that she made during that time.
Through your grandfather?
Correct.
So, and at that time it was probably already an estate piece of jewelry. Did he repair them as well, jewelry, or did he just work on watches?
Just watches.
This piece is probably anywhere from the turn of the century to the late teens. It's what they call a basket filigree work, and it's white gold and yellow gold. Frequently you also saw them with 3 colors of gold. This one is just the 2. The stone in the center is either a synthetic or glass. In this time frame, I would say it's probably glass. It's possible at the time that your mother bought it, somebody had replaced the center stone. It was not an unheard of thing at that time to put new stones in old rings because something had happened to the original stone. And if she did buy it through your grandfather, that could have happened at the jeweler's building easily. But it does match the ring very nicely, and it's a pretty piece. I would probably value this piece at about $275, and it could go higher than that depending on the market.
Oh, very good.
It won't hurt you to take it to a gemologist to get a second opinion on that.
On the stone?
And, yeah, make sure about the stone.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much. It's a very pretty ring. You're very lucky.
Yes, it is. I am. Thank you.
Hi, Carol. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
This is Carol Jagger, and she brought with her today a made in Japan tin litho mechanical toy. Could you wind that up for us once, Carol? Let's see how it works.
I don't know how to shut it off.
It has to wind down.
Just precious.
You can see the graphics on this are really great. It's got all the little cats in the basket, and on the back side, it is marked. Very small, made in Japan, with an SJ logo for the company that made it. Made probably in the early 60s. They are very cute, very desirable little toys. And how did you get this one?
My little cousin passed away at the age of 5 due to leukemia, and I used to babysit for him, and so his mother, as a memento, told me that I could take one of his toys, and this is what I took because, well, he played with it, and that's when I remember him. So, and it's just been put away. No one's ever. I wasn't even sure when I brought it out tonight if it still worked or not.
The graphics are in wonderful condition, and that's always the problem with these tin litho toys. They get scratched up, they get rusted, the graphics get destroyed, they get played with, they get broken. You know, they're rather delicate little things, but they're very, very cute, very sweet. And you've had this piece how long now?
40, some 6, 7, 8 years. Anyway, almost 50 years.
So you got it in the 60s also. Well, I can put a retail value on this piece of between $250 and $300.
Good. I would never dream of selling it, but it's nice to know what you have.
It's a sweet piece.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for bringing it.
Thank you.
There's some really interesting pieces of folk art here that Vesna Fantine brought for us to check out tonight. They're from Croatia?
Correct, yes.
And what can you tell me about them?
Well, this is a family piece from a grandmother. It was a gift to her. From what I understand, it's approximately 100 years old. And this is an instructional decorative arts booklet that was accompanying the piece.
Okay. I can tell you that the idea of this book was to give people the patterns to put on the gourd. And the gourd has very much a paisley pattern, very similar to a paisley shawl. First they etched the pattern out, and then they used probably folk ink, or it could be red ochre, but it looks to me more like ink than ochre. It could also be a red stain. These pieces are interesting to people for their folk art value. This one has just a couple of very slight flaws that wouldn't really affect the value. They're not widely known. They're interesting little pieces, and you don't find them very often. If you look inside the book, you can see similar pictures, and it shows you how to go about making the borders and the patterns. Now, I would date this to 1890s, turn of the century, probably. Could be a little bit later than that, but right around that time frame. So I think your history from the family is correct. It's a very interesting little piece and a lot of fun.
It is.
I would value the two pieces together, and I would keep them together. I would value the two pieces together at about $110. That's a very interesting little piece, so thank you very much for bringing it this evening.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Mary Rose Rukavina has brought us a beautiful bracelet. What can you tell us about that?
Well, all I can tell you is that I know it's very old, and I got it from a friend that I was helping about 30 years ago.
Okay. And when you got it 30 years ago, your friend told you it was old at that point.
She had gotten it from someone in her family.
And do you know where she got it from?
No.
If we look at the back of this piece, it's marked Silver, Mexico. So this is a lovely silver bracelet from Mexico, who were very, very good at doing stylized jewelry. And these stones actually look like they may be a malachite stone. Very, very nicely done. They have a beautiful swirl pattern to them. Also, the silver itself has almost a stylized animal feel. These look almost like they would be tails in between these three little balls here separating each of the bangles on it. It's a beautiful piece. It looks like it was probably from about the 1930s. It's a nice heavy piece and very, very striking. And I would put a value on it because these older Mexican silver pieces are really becoming quite popular and sought after. I'd put a value on this piece of probably about $200 to $250.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, I'd like to welcome Kathleen Schultz, and she's brought some things that are in my favorites. She has a wonderful card signed from Linda and Paul McCartney. She also has a concert ticket stub, and she has a letter that was sent to her from Paul. If you just turn it around and then turn it back around, and tell us about the story that you told me.
Well, actually, it's a quite interesting story. My girlfriend, who lives in England, was a pen pal to me, and I actually got her name out of a Beatle fan magazine when we were 16 years old. It was a few years ago. And in the meantime, we became very good friends. Her husband, and about the time of our 40th birthdays, was a firefighter in England, and he was able to meet Paul McCartney's mailman, his real mailman, the person that delivers the real mail to his house. So Tony sent Paul a birthday card for me and a birthday card for his wife. And actually, Tony wrote this letter to Paul McCartney explaining about how we had become friends and how the Beatles were such a big part of our friendship. And he asked Paul if he would sign these 2 birthday cards, one for his wife and one for me. So Paul signed them, and then he sent them back to Tony, and then Tony gave these birthday cards to us as a gift.
Well, that's just a fascinating story, and you're very, very lucky to have them.
Thank you.
Paul McCartney's signatures, as almost any of the Beatles, demand at least 300, and in the right market, it could go up as high as 500. And these should be all kept together with the story that, that puts the provenance where it belongs. And I'm quite sure that you will treasure it. And then she told me that she has some other memorabilia of theirs. So you're very lucky. And I thank you so much for bringing them.
Thank you.
Hi, I'd like to welcome Charisse Cariota. She has brought just an absolutely magnificent Madame Alexander doll. She's just absolutely precious. Her name is Lady Lindemeyer. Lindemeyer, I'm sorry. Probably about the 30s. And where did you get this?
Well, originally I received this when I was a child from my aunt, who received this when she was a child. And my aunt is approximately in her 70s now, so she received it first and then passed it down to me. So it's been around for some time. Well,
it's just, every bit of it is very original. The body is composition, and the date and the period would be in the 30s. She has a little condition problem with minor, but it's minor, crackling. Her eyes, she has the open, closed eyes, and the little open mouth, the partially open mouth. And she's just absolutely precious. I would put the value in the right market, and it needs to go into a specialty doll market of at least $3,000. And it could go as high as $5,000.
Wow,
so
that's wonderful.
It's a very rare doll. There were not a lot of her made.
That's excellent. So, that's wonderful.
And I just thank you so much for bringing her.
Thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Tonight we have a lovely made in Japan lemonade set that is hand painted with violets. Llewellyn Guerra brought this in. Llewellyn, how did you get this piece?
I purchased it in Brookfield at the Helping Hand.
At the Helping Hand store?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's neat. And you said you had glasses with this as well?
Mm-hmm. I have 2 for sure. I don't know if I have the 4.
These came frequently as sets of 5. So the 5-piece set would include 4 glasses. You do see them with more glasses. Sometimes those are accumulated sets. And they may have been made with more. But if you look at the size of the picture, it really wouldn't hold more than 4 glasses. This is hand-painted with violets. This exact same pattern I have seen on Nippon pieces, which are a little earlier than the made in Japan. This is probably a transitional piece from Nippon to Japan. It does say it's hand-painted on the bottom. It is very well marked. I believe this is one of the Morimura brothers marks the dogwood, but I'm not positive without my book. This is called a lemonade set, and they would have served cold lemonade in it, and probably came from about the 50s, late 40s, early 50s, probably the 50s though, because it was after the war. It's a really neat set, and I would value it at about $175 with 4 pieces if you have all 4.
What about just the 2?
If you only have 2, I would say, well, it's probably at least $125 just for the picture. And I would say, you know, then you go from there.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you. We have an interesting piece of glass this evening. Jeanette Lahart, you brought this in to us. What do you know about the piece?
Not much at all. I picked it up about 3 years ago at an antique show.
At an antique show?
Yeah.
This piece is signed our Lalique. Unfortunately, it's not a genuine signature. Someone did sign it, however. The quality of the glass is not there to be a Lalique piece, and that was the first clue that it wasn't right. And then the type of signature, Lalique went around the edges, and it didn't look like this at all. I would guess that the piece of glass is probably from the 40s or 50s. I can't tell you what company did it. It's satin glass, and it's molded. It's a somewhat attractive piece. Decoratively, I would give you a value of about $50. I hope you didn't pay too much more than that.
Not too much more.
That's good.
No, not too much.
That's good. Yeah. Sorry it wasn't better news.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's why I brought it here. Great, thank you.
Bob Bischoff has brought us a beautiful oil-on canvas. Where did you get this painting, Bob?
At an estate sale. You see the sign, you drive, you park, you go in, you see what kind of treasures you find.
That's true. Do you collect art?
Yes.
You do. And what did you think about this piece when you first saw it?
It stopped me in my tracks when I first saw it. I walked in the foyer and there it was, and I didn't leave the room.
It's gorgeous.
I guarded it.
It's gorgeous. It's called Venice Scene, and it's by Louis Thevenin, and he signed it in the bottom corner over here by you. Difficult signature to read. I believe he's also a listed French artist. We were unable to find him listed on the American side in places like Artfact. But it's a beautiful piece, absolutely gorgeous. The colors are rich and vibrant. It's framed very, very nicely. It really makes it pop. I mean, from across the room, it's just gorgeous. Little seaside village, you know, looks obviously like Venice. The canals are coming through, the boats are beached right now. You see the beautiful, beautiful buildings reflecting the sunlight. It's really nice. It's really, really nice. I would think a piece like this, because we can't find him listed right now, a piece like this is probably in the $2,500 to $3,500 range. If he does become listed here and start selling work over here that we can verify, it could go even higher. It's gorgeous.
Cool.
It's a wonderful piece. Thank you very much for bringing it.
Thanks.
What we have here is a very fascinating box, and inside the box, John Kuda has found 4 reels of a silent film. Now, he said that what he could find out was that it was the original Cinderella from Germany?
Yes, yes, around 1920s, somewhere right around in there.
Where did you get this?
Actually, they're my mom and dad's. They bought a house. They bought their house about 45 years ago, and in the basement, this box was left there.
It was left behind.
Yes. So then they did some research on it.
And they did do some research. Were they able to find anything out besides the fact that it was a German?
I guess a Mr. Berger produced it or something like that in Germany, and it was called The Last Shoe. And then they, I guess here, then they turned it into Cinderella. Yes.
Right. If you notice, I don't know if have you ever noticed the stamp on it that says it's from the Board of Education in Chicago?
No.
So I assume that at one time this was being shown in the schools, probably recreation, I would guess, you know, maybe during an assembly or something like that, although it may have been during a literature class, I don't know. The first thing that struck me, besides how unusual it was the fact that someone needs to take this and conserve it. Because when you take the lid off, you can really smell the silver nitrate. It's starting to break down. I'm honestly not positive if anything can be done to stop that. Not for the money that this is worth. If it was a rare American film, it would probably be, you know, worthwhile.
Right.
But it would be very costly to have that done. The box is made out of zinc and it's very tight-fitting lid, so it did really protect it quite well over the years. It's just natural that as silver nitrate ages, it decays. Since it is not an American film, but rather a European film, that affects the value. There is quite a movement of people that are collecting silent films. However, they're collecting American films for the most part. I'm not too sure that a lot of them are into the European market. I have seen some European market ones, you know, out there. I would say that the value of this would probably start at about $350.
Okay.
And it would go up from there. Your best thing would be to contact one of the auction houses that deals in film memorabilia if you want to find out if it would be worth any more than that, or if you would want to sell it more than whether or not it would be worth more than that, because I do think that's a pretty fair value on it. But they could also probably give you more information on it. So I think it's a really, really interesting piece, and I'm glad you brought it this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Johanna LaValle has brought us a Fender electric guitar. What can you tell us about your guitar, Johanna?
I can't tell you anything. I just bought it at the Goodwill.
At the Goodwill?
Yes.
Do you know who the maker of this guitar is?
No, I really don't.
It's Fender. It says it right up here
Fender,
on the pegboard. Fender is one of the preeminent makers of early electric guitars especially, and still guitars today. This guitar probably dates from the mid-60s. One of the most popular guitars Fender made was called the Stratocaster. This one is the Music Master 2. It's a simple 6-string guitar. It has a rosewood fingerboard, mother of pearl inlays, has its original pickguard, dual controls. It's a fairly simple guitar, but an excellent guitar. Wonderful to play. Now it does show its signs of use. There's belt buckle damage to the paint. This has a very thick coating of paint on it. It has some kids' stickers on the back, if you can turn it around for us. Some not so nice garbage pail kid stickers. And someone initialed it also. It also has its original plate with the serial number on it. You could get the exact information on this guitar, find out exactly when it was made by looking up that serial number. And of course, a previous owner autographed it. And that too might count for something, along with the belt buckle that tore up the paint back here. Now if you could turn it around for us again. It's in a nice pale yellow. It does have, you know, like I said, the nicks and bruises on it, a little bit of staining. You really don't want to mess too much with these if you don't know what you're doing, because they are electric and there's components in here that could be damaged. I picked at it a little bit earlier when you first brought it in. It's in great playable condition. I really like it. If this were a Stratocaster, you could go buy, you know, a nice used car.
Wow.
It's not a Stratocaster. It's a Music Master. A really good guitar, a really good, desirable guitar. You bought this at Goodwill. What did you pay?
$5.
I'll give you 10.
Yeah.
That's it?
A lot of people like vintage guitars. They love Fenders. I think you could get probably $500 to $750 for this guitar.
Yeah, that's more like it.
You got a good deal at Goodwill today.
That's why I like the Goodwill.
Thank you very much for bringing it in.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening. I want to thank LaGrange Park Antique Mall in LaGrange Park, Illinois for their hospitality. And for this evening, I'd like to say thank you from Dawn Croma, Linda Benson, and Loretta Harwood.